כזה, מה אני... יכולת לי לא להיות חומרי.
ברגע שכבר קלטתי כאילו שאין כזה דבר הופעה, אז הייתי כאילו שובר שיניים והייתי כזה רוצה את העיניים, הייתי שובר שבאים מאחורה שמים את המטרה, הולכים תודה.
Take a seat, let's start. So first of all, essay writing. מה אמרנו שנעשה חוץ מדבר על חיבור, נכון?
בעיות חפיפה, ומה הדפים ש... לא יודעת, חפיפה וסטטיסטיקה.
יש לנו בערך עוד 4 מודולים.
אבל כאילו עדיף אולי שנסיים את זה ואז נעשה הרבה חזרות, לא? ככה אמרת שנעשה.
מכיוון שלא כולם היום, אני אשתדל גם טיפה לחזור, בסדר? בשבוע הבא, כן, להביא יותר דברים חדשים, ואז נסיים את כל השבוע הבא. נראה, אבל נראה איך אנחנו מתקדמים. So, essay writing. First of all, you have the pages in front of you. Let me also give you sheets that you guys can use in order to write essays. So you can take as many, yeah, you can take as many as you want. Take 2, 3, 4, yeah. Now, when you do send it, and I'll mail you today about whom to send it to, when you do send it, what you need to do is you either need to scan it or you need to take a really, really good photo of it. And then you mail it. I'm sorry? No, this examination is with writing. It's not. No. I mean, maybe you type much faster than you write, or vice versa. Listen, up to you. I would recommend that you do that. You either scan it, or you take a photocopy, or you take a picture. The guy, right, Melon, as far as he's concerned, yeah, he'd much rather have you guys type it. But I don't want you guys to type it because the real examination is not about typing. This is the only examination, by the way, that is that way. GRE, TOEFL, GMAT, all of these examinations that have long forsaken, writing responses. Yeah. Okay, so homework, but I do leave it up to you. If you're telling me that you type at about the same rate that you write. Oh, that's so nice of you. But it's part of his job, right? So, up to you guys. So, mail, essay, and this is a question mark. You don't have to do it. But remember that if you do it, just to simulate the experience as closely as possible. Now, the email is edu2@americanschool.co.il. So edu2, that's education 2. americanschool.co.il. Yep.
בתוקף לא הספקתי חלק שלם, כי החליטו להוסיף לי אקסטרה. זה לא, זה הפיילוט הזה, לא?
Yeah, one of them was a pilot, yeah.
אז לא ידעתי מה, אבל את האחרון לא עשיתי.
הוסיפו לך 1 או 2?
1, נראה לי. 15 שאלות, לא עניתי. מה זה אומר?
I don't know what to say. Maybe it was a pilot. Take a seat, let's start. So the essay writing, we're talking about it's a 25-minute task. It's at the beginning of the examination. They do have a software that basically looks at all of the written responses, because what happens is that, nobody's going to get your physical copy. What's going to happen is that they have a software that photographs the page, right? And that translates. By the way, if you do want to use it, it's called OCR. OCR software basically takes an image of words and turns them into text, just in case you want to. Yeah. No. What they do is they literally take a snapshot of it. What I'm telling you as students, right? Just so you know that sometimes you can, let's say you have a huge, a couple of, let's say 5 pages that are laden with information, and you're looking for one specific word, and plus you don't want it in physical form. You want it in the soft form, right? What you can do is basically you can scan those, and then there's a piece of software called OCR, Object Character Recognition, and basically what it does, it takes an image of a word and it turns it into a word. It's not 100% accurate, but it's quite good. It's quite good. Just so you know that you have also that venue, that avenue to explore. So they also have, for disqualification purposes, that piece of software. Got it? Because a computer will have to be able to see what you wrote and then convert it into letters and then compare these letters. So just so you know, don't copy anyone else's work, just do your own thing. What is measured? On this examination, you need to develop a well-articulated position on the issue. What is a well-articulated position? Exactly. Articulate. He's very articulate. הוא מנוסח היטב, הוא רהוט. זאת אומרת, התגובה שלי צריכה להיות רהוטה. And the issue, on the issue presented and its complexities, we need to use compelling reasons and examples. Connect ideas logically, coherently. What is coherently?
Coherence.
Coherence, שזה מה?
Clear.
נכון. עקיב, exactly. If somebody is coherent זה עקוב, עקיב. If somebody is coherent, that means that you can follow their line of thought. If somebody is completely freaked out, that person is not going to be coherent. בדיוק, עקיב, שניתן לקרוא, דומה קצת לעקיב. Use effective vocabulary and sentence variety. Now, careful. During the course, you learn many new words. So sometimes people want to show off, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to use that word. I'm going to use that word." Yeah, but it has to make sense within the context. Got it? It has to sound good. It doesn't. It's not enough that you know the meaning of a word and you know how to spell that word. You also need to be able to use it in an effective context. I saw a radio show, and one lady spelled curious like this, an American, with a Q-U, just so you know. Some native English speakers can speak the language but cannot spell it. Right? Curious is with a C, obviously. Please highlight this. Identify and analyze the main features of an argument. You need to effectively support the main points of the critique. What is a critique? No. Critique. Critiques of bikoret. Bikoret. So critiques of bikoret, the critics זה מבקר. And you need to know the difference between the two. I would suggest that you know how to spell that word. You can even use it in the essay itself. So in conclusion, my main critique regarding the argument presented by the author is that blah blah blah. You need to connect ideas logically and coherently, but mainly you need to identify, you need to analyze the main things that the author is saying. By the way, you do need to know how to spell the word author. Author. Right? It's pronounced slightly differently, but this is author. Oh, because instead of saying, the speaker claims that she is, instead of using he or she, and by the way, it's better to use a she than to use a he. That's just an affirmative action. I told you guys on the TOEFL as well. Just use author. במקום, באנגלית לא משייכת סקס, נכון, למי שכותב את זה, בסדר? אז בשנייה שאת אומרת author, את לחלוטין עוקפת את הבעיה הזאת של רגע, אני הולכת להתייחס אליו כגבר, או אני הולכת להתייחס אליו כאישה, בסדר? אז, know that word as well, please. Recommended structure. Now, remember that unlike on the TOEFL, on this examination, you cannot just write whatever it is that you want. And let's say I wrote 4 paragraphs and I have enough time. I thought I was really slow, right? But I typed 4 paragraphs and I have more time for additional paragraphs. So what can I do? I can go between the 3rd and 4th paragraph and I can insert another paragraph, right? Obviously here, you don't have that privilege. Why? Because it's a pen and paper examination, right? No. Actually, what happens on this examination, you have the notebook, you have the answer sheet, right, which includes your A, B, C, D, E, In addition to, at the beginning, you have something identical to what I've distributed right now, right? Can you pass them a couple pages as well, because some of you took. Yes, here. Now, sorry. And all of the scratch paper work is being done within the exam notebook itself. So you have 2 notebooks at the beginning of the examination. Got it? So you need to work out you need to work out what it is that you're going to write before you start writing it. And I was on the TOEFL. Did I mention we already covered this, right? Do we cover this on the TOEFL? I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, we will. So the recommended structure. 1, it is a very, very good idea because you don't have a lot of time to always come up with some kind of an introduction, and then at the end have some kind of a summary, and in between you need to have body paragraph number 1, body paragraph number 2, body paragraph number 3. If you can put together additional paragraphs, then good. But remember, it's always about quality, not about quantity. So it's better to have fewer paragraphs, better written, than to have multiple paragraphs that contain many grammatical and syntactical errors.
Minimum 3.
If you can listen, we are not native English speakers, so it's going to be difficult. But if you can put together 3 body paragraphs, even by the way at the expense of the introduction and the summary. In other words, you do need to have an introduction and a summary, but these can be really, really succinct. By the way, you can also say succinct. Succinct, what is תמציתי, בדיוק. Or, את יודעת שגם אומרים גם succinct?
כן.
כן, יפה.
למדתי את זה.
כן, כן, ראשון. כן, דיברנו על המילה הזו? אוקיי, סבבה. So, even at the expense of the introduction and summary being very, very succinct. So the introduction can be something along the lines of a single line, and the summary can be a single line. As long as you can maybe elaborate on the body paragraphs. A couple of pointers. Now, here's the deal, and this is why I did not want to teach you that beforehand. This is why I did not want to teach you that beforehand. Why? Because people usually at the beginning, when they're inexperienced, say, let's just write essays. I need to practice my writing, it's not really good, blah, blah, blah. And usually if I give the reason that I do things the way that I do them nowadays, it's very, very simple. At the beginning of my career, basically what I would have asked people to just put together essays at the beginning of a course, and people don't know how to write an essay. Even if you teach them that, remember, what have we gone through up until this point? Specifically with sentence correction, you guys saw hundreds and hundreds of mistakes, hundreds and hundreds of ways of correcting mistakes. Which means that hopefully when you start to put together an essay, that essay is going to be far more effective, that you're not going to be making those mistakes. Got it? So instead of starting at a 1.5, which is usually the case, if people don't do any sentence correction and studying before this, usually people start right now at about 2.5 or 3 as a class average for the first task. So instead of starting very, very slowly and improving very, very slowly, we worked on something else. And our first essay will be about here, the second essay is going to be about here, third essay is going to be about here, something of that sort. So within approximately 3 essays, the average level of class is probably going to be about 4.5, which is, by the way, about the average of native English speakers. It's going to be about 4.5, and that's it. You cannot improve. So the good news is that you improve very, very quickly, and that you write much, much less compared to another person who didn't do it very methodically and very intelligently like we did it. The bad news is that you cannot improve tremendously. Got it? Because that's it. You have all of the tools, including templates, including error correction, so on and so forth. And that's it. Probably after about 3 to 4 essays, you're going to get as high as you can get with your current level of English. I think it's a better scenario than the other scenario, right? Wasting time, wasting a lot of time and effort. But just so you know, I'm telling you this in advance. It doesn't mean that if you start with a 3.5, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a 6, like in 2 essays. No, you just start very high, and you probably are going to finish higher, but not much, much, much higher. A couple of pointers. Yeah.
כמה מילים זה בכלל?
What they tell you is that you need, they give you, and you saw it, right? May I take another look at it? Thanks. What they tell you is that you have page number 1, right? And you have page number 2. So they tell you that if you write, you keep your handwriting to a normal size, they don't say here, but they do say it somewhere, I forgot where. What they tell you is that you keep your letters to a reasonable size, this should be enough. Basically, usually essays that get a perfect score are essays that have, listen up, are essays that include all of this and at least a third to a half of this. Got it? So this amounts to about 400 words, something of that sort. Yeah, it's not a small amount of words. It's not a small number of words. So just so you know, this gives you some kind of feel as to the volume. A couple of pointers, and please highlight those. So you have the handout I've handed out just now. A couple of pointers. First of all, use conjunctions. What are conjunctions? And we talked about this. מילות קישור, נכון. אנחנו אמרנו שצריך להשתמש במילות, למדנו בעצם מה זה conjunctions. פה אני אומר לכם, תשמעו, it's not just empty knowledge. It's not knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It's something that now is going to help you improve your score. Why? Because you will use conjunctions to facilitate the grader's work. What is facil? Facilities and מתקן, נכון? תמיד מעלים את זה. Anyone? Anyone else? פסיל, דפיסיל. בספרדית אני בטוח שזה. נכון. facility זה להכיר. כן.
בספרדית, לא בצרפתית.
אני התכוונתי שבטוח בספרדית יש את זה, אני מכיר את זה מצרפתית. נכון. אז, אגב, מקילים את העבודה, לא מקילים על העבודה. מקילים את העבודה ומקילים על העובד. So you need to use conjunctions to facilitate the grader's work. So listen, blah, 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 blah. However, blah, blah. Therefore, it is very obvious that blah. Now, even though you didn't understand anything of what I said, you understood everything of what I said. Because of two things. One was the melody, right? Three things, actually. One was the melody, the second was the facial expressions, right? And the third was the conjunctions. Got it? Especially if I'm not a native speaker. Sometimes, by the way, people write something and it's not really understandable, but then they give me for example. And then I understand the example, right? And then I go, okay, I'll let it slide. Got it? You see? So use conjunctions is going to help your score. Be concise. Stick to the point. Usually with the, whenever you write something, I don't, this is not an official statistic, but I get a feel that, beyond 20 words, every single word that you add increases the chances of you making some kind of grammatical error by about 5%. So it's be careful about that. Avoid run-ons. Run-ons are very, very long sentences, but be sure to use both simple as well as complex sentences. Very important. This is something that even if my English is horrible, I'm going to be able to follow this tip. Put different ideas in different paragraphs. Remember, they're not looking for the next Shakespeare. Basically, everybody starts with 6 points, with 6 full points, and from this moment on, they're just looking to take off points. So if they are, one of the easiest way for them to take off points is if they see, 2 ideas in a single paragraph. They are very big on organization. So you have to organize really, really well. Remember what we said. We said active is better than passive. Lo and behold, the active here is also going to be helpful. Remember what we said. If we're using and or lists, or the word then, by the way, which also crops up a lot on essays, what I want you guys to do is to look at what shows up after and then make sure that there is a parallelism to what showed up beforehand. Make sure that the items are parallel. Do not type in words whose spelling you're uncertain about. Familiarize yourself. Know how can you weaken an A to B argument at home. If you want to go through this, that is a nice idea, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Okay. Now, At home, I would also highly, highly recommend that you guys know this by heart. Know this by heart. Listen, you know what a columnist is? What's a columnist? כותב טורים, נכון?
רגע, מה אמרת לזה? מה אמרת שממש חשוב?
לא אמרתי, להפך, אמרתי שזה לא כל כך חשוב לדעת את הדרכים להחלשת טיעון. בסדר? This is important. This I want you guys to know by heart. You know how long a columnist usually takes? Let's say I'm a professional columnist, right? In order to produce 300 to 400 words, I would usually need to work about 3 hours. You know, assuming I'm good, if I'm a professional columnist. Obviously, we're not professionals, but it takes a lot of time. Now, here, we need to produce something relatively similar within a sixth of the amount of time, right? We have half an hour, not even that, yeah. So that means that we need to be really, really proficient. We have to have a certain way of working, a certain method of operation. And that's exactly what I'm going to work with you guys on right now. Make sure that you know this by heart. Make sure that you know this by heart. Be sure to know this by heart. You have, you know, if I give an essay to two people, and I just look, you know, from behind them, the person who starts writing first is usually the one who's going to get a lower score. Why? Why?
Because they don't know what they're going to
Exactly. Because think about it, we are very, very privileged to be working, you know, to be putting together letters and sentences in an age of, you know, soft copy. That means that you can write whatever it is that you want, and you can delete it, and then you can rephrase it, and you can do whatever. However, here we don't have that luxury because, again, this is a pen and paper examination. Got it? So that means that we need to have a very, very clear understanding of what we write before we write it. So now I'm going to do an experiment with you guys. Take out the McGraw-Hill book, please. Take out the McGraw-Hill book, Now, you have practice tests at the end, right? So why don't we turn to the first practice test and we'll take a writing test from it. It's page 581. 581.